This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August 10th, 2023 edition of the Iowa 911 Communications Council. We'll call the meeting to order. I'll forgo guest introductions since we have people scattered all around the state, but if I could, please, Kara, could you give us a roll call and make sure we have a quorum?
Yes. Chris Jasper?
Jasper's here.
All right. Jeff Miller?
I'm here.
George Griffith? Mike Bryant?
Present. Can you hear me?
Still don't have any. Yep, I heard you. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Still don't have anybody for Mark. Tom Berger? Tracy Bearden?
Here.
Richard Pierce?
Here.
Rob Dennert?
Here.
Adam Welp? Taylor Teeple? You have a forum, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And if I could I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
Pierce will make the motion.
Okay.
Jasper will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Against, same sign. And we approve. Also, could I get a motion to approve the July 13th, 2023 minutes?
Pierce will make the motion.
Have a
Second.
second? No?
Chris
Is
Jasper?
that Chris Jasper making the second?
Yes, sorry, Jasper will second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Against, same sign. And motion is approved. Okay, Blake, do we have a report?
Do, and the first topic of the day is the financials. So if you're in the room, there was printouts in the back. If you're online, I'll try to talk you through this. So at the end of the fiscal year, so there's a couple other additional things to look through and talk through. But just starting at the top, wireless surcharge was $7.9 million. Interest, $72,000. Prepaid revenue was $542,000. Brings the total surcharge to 8.5 for the quarter. Again, nothing really too noteworthy to talk through as far as network costs. So the amount that we transferred over to operating surplus for the quarter was that $583,385. That is just above the first thick line. So then the next section kind of talks through the quarterly operating surplus. Again, nothing really of note there. So I want to spend a little bit of time with the end of year surplus summary. As you know, or hopefully are aware, at the end of every fiscal year, we analyze how much we have available in the surplus to pass through to local jurisdictions. We divide that up by the number of PSAPs and pass that through equally. So when we started that process, about 2018, the starting point for the surplus was around $24 million. So we've done a number of things since then. We've done a significant amount of virtual consolidation. There's 70 plus PSAPs on shared services. We've absorbed the wireline network onto the existing EZNet and made a lot of significant capital investments and recurring costs there. We've also, as we've passed money through, the starting point becomes less and less every year. So we are to the point now where, as you see, the surplus has gotten down to about $7 million. So with the surplus, we do a couple things. Per 34A, we are allowed to keep up to 12.5% of annual revenue for catastrophic reserve. The idea at the time being if a data center took a tornado hit and we had to rebuild that really fast, we wanted the capital to be able to do that, not go to the legislature and ask for money. So a couple things. We've transitioned our Comtech contract to a service-oriented, a hosted service-oriented contract. So in theory, if that scenario happens, we don't necessarily have to have the capital for a Comtech data center replacement. That's something that Comtech would do on their own. That being said, we do have Zetron host facilities that is kind of the same premise. If there were a catastrophic incident at one of those host sites, we would need the capital, the money to be able to replace that really, really fast. So as we were looking at end of year pass-through money, we had a number of discussions. If we would have zeroed out and passed through the surplus kind of the way we normally do, there would not have been any pass-through. We would not have had enough money in the surplus to cover our Zetron commitments for next year and still withhold that 12.5 catastrophic reserve. So you can see the catastrophic reserve would have been $4.1 million. In order to have this conversation, in order to continue to pass some revenue through, and in order to, I think, smartly maintain what we need and not more than what we need, we decided to retain $2 million instead of the 4.1. That still covers our needs if we have to replace one of those Zetron hosts, and allows us to pass funding through. So for all those questions that come into our office, you know, we used to get $50,000 of pass-through money, now we're getting 10. This is some of the calculus that goes into this. So I've talked over the past year or so that, you know, we are very consciously looking at revenues and expenditures. One of the indicators that led us to this conversation happened about a year ago. It was when we had to dip into the surplus to cover our recurring costs. We like to use kind of what we call the front end of the fund to cover recurring costs, but for the first quarter of the previous fiscal year, we had to dip into the surplus to cover those recurring costs. There are some reasons for that, and we've tried to restructure how we pay bills throughout the year instead of coming out that first quarter of the year. So that's one of the things that we've tried to do to manage that. Another indicator, if you go to the final box here on this page, you'll see that the year-to-date operating surplus revenue is the top line there. That's, you know, if you add up every quarter, how much did we move into the surplus?
Write it down so you can see.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, in the room. The top line there is 1.7. So the entire quarter, or I'm sorry, the entire year, we moved 1.7 into the surplus. And then if you go to the last figure there, the virtual consolidation non-recurring cost, that's 2.7. That's upside down. That's meaning we're spending more out of the surplus than we are moving into the surplus. So that's another indicator that, you know, we're raising some red flags and trying to figure out, you know, what we need to do to manage the fund, which is our, of course, statutory responsibility. So with all of that in mind, Director Benson is in the room, and he wants to have a bit of a conversation on kind of, you know, where we can go from here.
Thanks, Blake.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. No, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. Some of you I've never met before. Some of you are old familiar faces. Good to see you. This happens occasionally, about every 10 years, it seems like, with our 911 financials. So we as a community need to be having a conversation about how we're going to keep this thing going, because we can juggle the numbers this year and it's fine. But in future years, it's not going to get better. In fact, it will get worse. So the question becomes, what as a community are we going to do in response to this? The easiest answer, at least for us sitting in the room, is let's jack the surcharge up. Simple, right? Politically, that ain't going to be so easy. I'll tell you that right up front right now. I'm not opposed to asking for an increase in the surcharge. We will, as a community, run into some political difficulties in doing that. If the sole answer we bring to the table to balance the sheet is more revenue, we are going to get asked the question right up front, what are you doing on the expense side of the equation? And to be rather blunt about it, the other question we will get asked is, why do you have 111 of these things? when we've already demonstrated that technology-wise, there is no reason to have 111, okay? So, my charge to Blake going forward is to get this discussion going. Do I expect us to have an answer for the upcoming, General Assembly session that starts in January? Absolutely not. It's too short of a time frame. The year after that, as a community, we need to be prepared to bring forth a package that we can work with. My counsel to you as a group would be this, is that there are going to be aspects of that that you're probably not going to like. There'll be things in there that I won't like as being responsible for running the network. There'll be things I won't like. But as a community, we have to get this figured out. The legislature is asking that. The governor is asking me that. How are we going to make this thing sustainable for the future? So, I think last time we did a surcharge increase was, anybody know?
2013.
2013, we went from 65 cents up to $1. And then at some other point, we moved all the wire over to $1 as well. So that's my ask of the 911 council and the 911 community is we need to work together as a group to figure out what this looks like. Because if we do status quo, this is not good. We will be upside down sooner rather than later, and not just a little upside down, it will get upside down fairly quickly. We did that, for those of you that are old timers, we were upside down about 2001, 2002, when we first started this, because most of you maybe remember that the surcharge was 50 cents back then, and it was only on cellular and PCS phones. I see a couple of heads nodding. And then we made the grand leap up to 65 cents. Oh my God, that was painful. And then there was the recognition that, yeah, we better go up to $1. So I'm not opposed, like I said, I'm not opposed to increasing the surcharge and asking that, but that can't be the only answer that we as a community bring to the table. We have to start looking at other additional efficiencies. And like I said, I know the one that will hurt the most in the community is legitimately talking about physical consolidation of answering points. So, having thrown those grenades into the room, any questions for me?
I would just add, I think one of the easy to come to mind is, we're spending all this money on Zetron and shared services. So last year, we did a bit of an analysis. All those PSAPs that joined shared services, the 70 plus, had those PSAPs bought their own individual equipment compared to what we were able to do through economies of scale and the purchasing power of the state, we saved $11 million. So yes, we are spending that money, but it's ultimately saving the community money by having us help subsidize that.
So my charge, Blake, you got about 12 months figured out. Let's go.
So I would have one question. Has it ever been looked upon, rather than doing a flat rate surcharge that never moves and doesn't deal with costs as they rise, going to a percentage surcharge instead?
A percentage of?
Percentage, say your cell bill, we're throwing a flat fee on your cell bill. A flat fee is stagnant, it doesn't deal with inflation, where a percentage would. I mean, we tax on percentages all the time.
Right.
How did we ever get to a flat rate? I mean, that's a rhetorical question, it doesn't really matter, but have we ever looked at doing something a little bit different as far as that goes?
I think the answer to that question is no, we haven't. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, but I don't believe anything like that has been approached nationwide either. In any of the other states?
I know other states have other creative methods, but I have not heard that one. In some cases, the legislature might give the council or whomever, the authority to go up to a certain amount and have it flexible year to year, or they might have a jump for 2 or 3 years and have that sunset, but I haven't heard that percentage concept.
And then another thing, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but, a lot of times we look at the 113 PSAPs, and I know back when the study was done, we really had to educate legislators thinking that those PSAPs, if we could just reduce them, we would reduce costs. And in fact, if you look at, since we are a rural state, I can just talk about mine. 911 is just one of the layers of duties that my folks do. We do obviously 911 admin calls, They do a certain amount of clerical. Many are involved in jail duties. And so, as we were looking at it, we did our own personal study in Iowa County to see if we could maybe share. And what we found is we would just add another bill, because now we're going to have all the people that we already have, and now we're going to pay a bill to, at the time we were looking at Lane County, Johnson County, to do our 911 dispatch. So there was actually not a savings, it was actually an increase of several $100,000 a year. So again, preaching to the choir, but I just hope that's a message that legislatures hear a lot of, because you can't look at 113 PSAPs and say, well, reduce it to 5. We're gonna just cut costs astronomically, because I don't think it's gonna happen at all. We're gonna move costs, certainly, but I don't see the savings. And by the way, I've heard that from, and I won't say names because I'm not gonna speak for them, but talking to metro area sheriffs say exactly the same thing. It's not a rural thing. It's a statewide.
Any other questions on the financial side? That really kind of ends my comments on the financial piece, but then I have additional info to convey.
It's not that easy.
And let me jump over to my slides. All right, and if there's any questions on that topic offline, by all means, just let me know. Okay, so covered everything on the program financials. Talked the last number of months about the emergency call routing function. That's the geospatial routing. That has been completed. If there is any fine tuning that you're noticing, or you're getting calls from areas that you used to not get calls from, it's probably tied back to your GIS data, and that we're not using tower face routing anymore. So get in contact with me, get in contact with Comtech. Let's have a conversation, and we can get that sorted out as well. Talked for the last year or so about 911 to 988 pilot transfers. Those pilot transfers are underway in the 3 PSAPs that I mentioned before, Black Hawk County, Johnson County, and Muscatine. We have had some successful 911 to 988 transfers, so I'm happy to report that. So we're really kind of ready for the next phase of this, and that's continuing to turn up additional PSAPs with this capability. And as I've talked in the past, the technical side is quite easy. It's refining the protocols and making sure everyone's on the same page about when to make those transfers over to 988. So in order to kind of prioritize, engage interest and attitudes on this entire topic, we have a survey, sent that out earlier this week. There's a QR code on the screen that will take you right to that survey if you haven't filled it out. So when this project started, I would say it really started with specifically 911 calls. But as part of the pilot, we quickly learned, sometimes somebody's calling the 10-digit line into your sheriff's office or PD. So, the survey tries to capture that as well. So there's 2 sections that you'll see. The first one is specific to literally 911 calls. And the second section is related to administrative line calls and attitudes towards transferring those type of calls over to 988. So both are possible. Both are being used as part of the pilot. So we're just trying to gauge where you're at on that topic. My hope and thought is that eventually, at some point, everyone in the state will be doing this. It might take a while to get there. I know there's going to be some hurdles and folks that aren't quite ready to do that, or you might already have a relationship locally with mental health capabilities. So understanding all of that, but certainly the ones that are ready and wanting to right away, we're interested in enabling that. Updated you last month that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Wendy, go ahead.
So the calls that are transferred,
Yep.
Are you tracking them somehow so that, as the pilot, so the mental health professionals can say, yes, this was definitely a call you should, or is there any critique of the pilot?
Yep, so over the course of the last year or so, we've had kind of a work group with HHS, that's the State Department that is managing 988. And then there's 2 988 centers in Iowa, one in Cedar Rapids, one in Iowa City. So we have monthly touch bases with all of those parties to refine the protocols and provide that feedback. nationally, they're looking at best practices as well. You know, we are still trying to figure out and refine the best way to transfer back. You know, if a PSAP does transfer to 988 and something escalates and the decision's made, it needs to go back. It's not an elegant solution at this point. You know, it's still relaying the 10-digit number that you have to transfer back to get to the PSAP. So we're still working on all of that. I guess that's my roundabout way of answering the question.
Does 988 know this call is coming from a PSAP?
No, it's a warm transfer. So, you know, and the couple that have happened, I think that's been some of the feedback is, you know, we need to rehearse this a little bit better. You know, that warm handoff, what do you say as you're handing it off? So you kind of have the flow chart of when to transfer, but now it's, you know, refining it even more to segueing that conversation over to 988.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on 988 before I move on? As I was saying on the consolidation piece, last month, I told everyone that Perry PD had folded into Dallas County Sheriff's Office. Similarly, this month, Iowa Falls PD folded into Hardin County Sheriff's Office. So the current number of PSAPs are 110. That being said, Cedar Falls DPS is going back to 24/7 here in the near future. So we'll be right back to 111. So just wanted to give everyone that update on where we're at with total number of PSAPs. Quick update on the GIS grant. As a reminder, we've moved to monthly updates and monthly uploads as one of the benchmarks in July. So July being the first month of the fiscal year, all counties met those benchmarks. And as a reminder, we're not doing those payouts until the end of the quarter. So you hopefully get all 3 months worth paid out at that time. One thing that was a bit of a conversation within our office, and I think some in the GIS community probably saw this as well, is, for lack of a better phrase, the end of month finish line. That being said, you know, we want frequent updates. If it's more than once a month, great. As long as you meet the benchmarks within that month, we don't care how you close the month out with. So for instance, if you meet the benchmarks for 28 days, and in the last day of the month, you upload your data and you accidentally introduce a critical error, you're not penalized for that. You've met the benchmarks for the month. There's not this artificial end of month that you have to cross the month with meeting all the benchmarks. We want frequent updates. I think, you know, if we were to penalize people, we would literally only see one upload a month, and then we wouldn't see new data coming into the system. So a little bit of a discussion, but that's kind of what we went with. So as long as you meet the benchmarks once a month, you've met the benchmarks and you get your grant funding. There are no training applications to approve today. You'll notice on the agenda that there is a presentation that Allie and Zetron will be doing a little bit later in the agenda, but nothing to consider as far as applications go. Any questions for me before I pass it over to Zetron for an update on shared services? All right, Lynn, if you're there, you can take it away.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Next slide. All right, Cedar Falls DPS is going live on August 30th. This is part of them moving to a 24/7 PSAP and having the school tip line. Other upcoming call-taking deployments, we've got Harrison County and Floyd County coming up. Next slide, please. Here is our state map, and we will update next month for Iowa Falls being folded into Hardin. And next slide, please. We have our next newsletter coming out end of August. If you are interested in getting a copy or adding any of your the people on your team to get copies, just send an email to lynn.warren@zetron.com. We'll get you on the distribution list. Any questions for me? All right, thank you.
And that concludes my remarks as well.
Okay, any questions for Blake? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Training fund request, statewide training opportunity presentation.
Hallie, were you gonna kick that off?
Yep.
Or- Okay.
Yep, I don't think Paul's on.
Okay. I think he is, but you
Is
can.
he?
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, if you're on, if you want to interject at any point, feel free to. So you all have probably noticed the last couple of years we've had training funds left over. From our office, we've done the coloring books, we've done the brochures to kind of spend some of that money since it can't transfer over. One of the opportunities we wanted to bring to you, and there will be a survey, we like surveys at our office, to kind of get your thoughts on this, is a statewide training opportunity. So it'd be available to all dispatchers, supervisors, anyone in your 911 center. It would be funded, like I said, out of that statewide training fund. That way we're using the money and you guys have training opportunities. And then we have two options for your consideration. And like I said, we have a survey that I would encourage everyone to take, asking you kind of your thoughts on the two options, training in general. Lots of room for you guys to give feedback. So please don't hold back on the survey. Please give feedback as it comes through. The next slide. So the first option would be an on-site option. So there would be 2 full days of training. We would do multiple classes within those 2 days. I do have a list of the classes that are available on-site and the hours attached to them. So each class can be presented anywhere from a 2-hour window to an 8-hour window, depending on what we're looking for. Attendees can attend one class, they can attend both days. It just kind of depends on what classes they're looking to attend. And it would be open to everybody, unlimited seating. So obviously we'd have to work out where we would host this and things like that, but that is option number 1. It would be strictly on-site training. You would attend the class. You could do multiple classes in a day and both days. Next slide. So that's just an example. So day 1, it'd be 8 to 5. It could be anywhere from the same class where we do a couple 4-hour sessions or 1 8-hour session, and then day 2 kind of the same. So we can kind of mix and match that on-site training to hold multiple classes within that day, or do 1 8-hour session depending on what the feedback we get from you guys. Okay, next slide. All right, the other option would be virtual training. So a whole virtual site that you guys can go and pick and choose what classes you would like to attend. So there's multiple classes on there. Each PSAP can kind of do a learning track for their PSAP if they would like to. So classes they recommend people take when they come on. The nice thing about online virtual training is if you get interrupted or have to stop training, you can always come back to it. It would be open to everyone. So you come on here, pick the classes you want for that virtual training, and go ahead and attend those. So I do also have that class list. It was quite extensive, so I just kind of did a general list on the survey of what is available. We'll send that survey out by email, and I can go ahead and attach that actual packet so you guys can see it as well. I thought about building it into the survey and figured that would be way too much, so we'll send that out. Next slide. So pricing is a little different. So on-site, it's a little under $8,000 per location. Like I said, it would be maybe a couple classes a day with the on-site training. And then virtual, it's a 12-month buy-in for everyone to get on there. So anyone can go ahead and log into the virtual account, attend as many virtual classes as they would like. And again, you can do those tracks for the virtual training. So there is a little bit of consideration, with on-site, fitting it into your schedule. Some people prefer that on-site learning and they want to be able to go to a class, completely unplug and attend it. Virtual gives you a little bit more flexibility with what classes you attend and how you can attend those. So those are our 2 options. Again, it's just coming out of that training fund. So we want your feedback on that if you think it would be a good use of those training funds, and then especially your feedback on which of these methods you prefer. Maybe you like both, but we really want to get those questions from you so we can go ahead and maybe give you more information as we consider both of these training options. So please do take the survey. Like I said, I'll send that out to everybody later today. But any questions so far on either of these options?
So the virtual is 100% self-paced, there's no interaction
I
with
believe-
an instructor or
I
other
believe so. So, yeah, my understanding is that all of them are kind of at your own pace, go through it and stuff like that.
What was the vendor?
Through the vendor. It's through Zetron, it's through the contract.
Yeah, so when we did our renewed C-Tron contract last year, we put this into the contract, but like a not to enact until we say so. So it's there, it's waiting for us to enact it, and now we're looking for feedback on, is now the right time? Are you interested in it? Paul, I know you have the specific vendor that you have subcontracted with. Who is that again?
That's Motivations, Blake.
Thank you.
And it is open to everyone. Oh, sorry, guys. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I think you're going exactly. I just wanted to highlight this is available to every PSAP and every member of the PSAP.
And would we be able to do this on a one-year basis to try to, figure out if we like it and not do it in future years if we decide to go a different direction?
Absolutely.
Are there demos available of this online training that we can take a look at? We currently do one with a different vendor than Motivation, but I'd like to compare the two.
So that was kind of something Blake and I had discussed. And Paul, once we get the feedback, would we be able to get maybe like a demo of one of the online classes that we can send out to everybody or everyone can get access to?
I'm sure we can work something out, Allie, for that.
Yeah, so that is definitely feedback, like I said, in the survey. If you were wanting to know more about any particular class or how that training would actually look, please include that in the survey. Again, another QR code, we like those. There's the link as well for the survey, but I will send those out today.
The price per location, what does that actually, per location?
So, it does include all of the materials, the instructor, and the.
But is that like just an annual fee, or is there so many classes you can hold for that $8,000?
So it's for the 2 days. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. So that price covers the 2 days, the trainer for the 2 days, and the materials for the 2 days. And I would assume that whatever classes we choose to hold within that 2-day period.
Correct, with unlimited seating as well. And we structured it, you could have, because we understand shifting, there could be a session, 2 4-hour sessions, or just one solid 8-hour session, depending on what everyone wants.
So spending money out of that training fund is, on approval with the 911 Council. So we'll obviously take the results of the survey, bring it back to the council for an actual, decision on whether to do it or not, or what that looks like. So not looking to spend money today, just having the presentation and the discussion going.
So I will send that out later today. Like you said, please provide your feedback. We may come back to you afterwards with additional questions, depending on what we hear from everyone.
Okay, any questions? All right, moving on. We'll go on to technical advisories. Does anybody have? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to an update from the Iowa Statewide Interoperable Communication System Board. Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Rudder. So the Rural Emergency Medical Communications Demonstration Project grant was successfully submitted through ISIC, and I will just report on if we get that award. They're supposed to announce that end of September. And a reminder to everyone that the comment period is still open through August 15th on the proposed policy statement that is the 700 megahertz conventional channel update with discipline-specific encryption. That's on our website, and we have received a few comments on that if anyone would like to review those. There is a skip scoping call scheduled later this month, so we will begin the review and revision process, and that will be through a CISA TA request, and I believe ECC Myers will explain more about that later, so that's all I'll say. And then happily, the radio cache was utilized during RAGBRAI. A total of 22 of our radios were, as well as some miscellaneous support equipment, and the mobile command units were deployed to various entities, so that was successful. And then I will give the training information. A reminder that the INTD Instant Tactical Dispatcher course registration is open. That's going to be held Potawatomi County, October 3rd through the 6th. It is filling up, so if you're interested, you should have your people register for that. And then the COMT that was originally postponed has been rescheduled. That will be held at ILEA in Johnston, October 23rd through the 27th. That registration is open with about halfway full. So if you're interested, it's a good time to fill in for that. I'll mention a couple other things. Kansas has opened up their OnStar training and demonstration session. It's August 24th in Topeka. If anybody is interested in some of that training, it'd be good dispatcher training. I can send you the flyer if you haven't already received it, if you're interested. And then there is also a virtual option for the District of Columbia Interoperability Summit that is going to highlight the 10-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing, but also just interoperability throughout the nation. So because that's an online option, it might be a good opportunity. And then hopefully you received the links to the all-hazard INTD and INCM awareness overview. There's no certificate or completion award for that course, but it's just an overview of those courses, and I can send those links out also. There's a couple different options still available, August 30th at 1 p.m. and September 19th at 9 a.m. Those are online. And then just a reminder to everyone that there are links to ISIC standards training on our website. There's a pursuit module that would be beneficial, and we are currently working on a status board updated review. We're also thinking about building a training module so you could go in and practice on status board without actually making any changes. If anybody is interested in information about that or would like to get signed up for status board, send me an email or give me a call and we can make that happen. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on and ask for an update from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning now to One Council. Really quickly to touch on the SCIF. The SCIF is, and the update itself is one of the services we provide. We've had a lot of internal discussions on how to best assist Iowa through their SCIF update, and we'll outline more on that as things unfold. One of the big things I wanted to talk about today is that our new ICTAP catalog has been released. This is the catalog that houses all of the technical assistance offerings that we have. Of note, this year there are 12 new, and I'll use the term new very loosely here, additions, mainly focused around PSAP and communication systems, cyber awareness, and cybersecurity. Previously, we just had one or two entries in the catalog and details were sorted out during scoping calls, but we realized that was inefficient with time, not only our own, but also our stakeholders. So we've taken the time to break these down into new offerings that include specific cybersecurity awareness webinars for 911, PSAPs, and radio systems. We now offer a 1 or a 2-day cyber awareness workshop and then threat assessment and response work group. So if you start thinking about not only are you aware of your cyber vulnerabilities, but do you have a plan to address them, we're starting to focus on the back end of that with the addressment. The assessments have been broken up into a full-on NIST 800-53 assessment and also a rapid cyber assessment that looks at some key components and works through those with you. I think one of the biggest things that I'm most excited about as your coordinator is that we are now also offering a post-assessment workshop. So instead of us working with you to create an assessment, give you the report, and then letting you do with it what you will, if you want, we can sit down with you for an additional 12 weeks and go over the assessment, the gaps that have been identified, and potential strategies to address and prioritize those gaps. So really, if you start thinking about the value added for that, there's an additional 12 weeks of I'll call it loosely consultation without calling it consultation, but we will work with you on figuring a good plan forward. There's also an active shooter communications technical assistance offering that is now available as well. And this is just one of the many new things within this catalog for this calendar year. Again, all of those requests are routed through your statewide interoperability coordinator, Ms. Haley Nichols. So please, if you have an idea on something you would like to do with this catalog, please reach out to Haley. On the next slide, I do want to talk about the SafeCom Nationwide Survey. It has been extended to September 29th. I do have some data here for Iowa's response rate, and this is current as of Tuesday morning. Currently, there are 64 complete responses, which puts you in 9th overall in the nation. It actually ties you with states like California, and puts you ahead of New York, Florida, and Pennsylvania. If you start thinking about the population between Iowa and those states, that's pretty significant that you're either tied with them or beating them. So that's good for making sure Iowa's voice is heard. Comparably with the rest of the states that are similar to Iowa in terms of population on the next slide, you guys are doing really, really well with your response rates, and in many cases, you are 20 responses or more ahead of them. So if you want to make sure that Iowa's voice is well heard throughout the survey, you're currently doing that, and I want to commend everybody in the room and that has taken the survey. The one thing I want to point out is that there are a lot of in-progress, incompleted surveys, and if you are able to complete all of those surveys as of today, as a loose estimation, that would lock you into the top 10 nationwide for responses and really make sure your voice is heard. Again, nice work on everybody's part for making sure those responses are submitted for the survey, and we still have some time left to get more in if you are able to. Next slide, recently released is our cybersecurity strategic plan. There's 3 main tenets to this, and that is address immediate threats and to harden the terrain. Both of those items are things that not only CISA can focus on, but states and local governments can also look at as well. This includes things like making sure you have good practices and policies for security on your networks to reduce the likelihood of intrusions or otherwise attacks. One thing CISA is looking at long term is how to drive security at scale. And this may be some coordination and collaboration with industry partners to make sure that out of the box, quote unquote, the software you implement and buy and work with is more secure by default. If you want to read more on that plan, it is available on our website. Getting down to the last item of new products here, we also just recently released a risk and vulnerability assessment that is an aggregation of all the assessments that were done during fiscal year 2022. This was done in partnership with the U.S. Coast Guard Cyber Command, and it looked at 121 unique assessments. What we found is that valid account exploitation is identified as the most prominent and successful technique that is used to compromise an organization. What this also does is if a valid account is compromised, it gives that threat actor lateral access and movement within the system to either exfiltrate data or cause more damage. Spear phishing, PowerShell, and remote desktop protocol all made the list as well. There's really 2 parts to this product. One is the actual document, which would be a good read for your information security officers, but there's also an infographic. And on the next slide, the infographic really does a nice job of breaking down various components of this product. Right here is an example slide from the defense evasion techniques that threat actors use, and it breaks them down by percentage on how often it was noted in some of these assessments as being an issue. In the case of valid accounts, it's right around 17.5%. So this product is available for everybody to use and download. If you have not yet seen it, please let me know, and I will get you a copy of this, as it is a very good read, especially for your IT-minded folks. The last slide, regional news of note. We are working on interoperability markers across Region 7. Iowa completed theirs already, and I will say that Iowa's results look very, very good. So again, I want to commend everybody here that has a hand in improving Iowa's interoperability landscape. We have some courses coming up in St. Francis County in Missouri, and also Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Those are both communications unit leader courses, and a tactical dispatcher course coming up in Dodge City. Other interoperability boards and council meetings are coming up in September as well, and those are listed here. That's all I have for the day, Mr. Chair. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, do we have any updates from the 34A Administrative Code Committee for the baseline knowledge for 911 communications professionals? Okay, hearing none. Any legislative issues? I kind of doubt it at this stage. we have any information sharing by council members? Any information sharing by anyone? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second?
Pierce will second.
All right, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.